So guys, finally our boys Sejun and the solo farmer are back. On the occasion of Christmas, I would like to say Merry Christmas to all of you. Please hit subscribe because we are going to have fun once again. Now, let us begin the video. We see that the dragon lady is extremely tense, deeply regretting her decision as she walks back and forth through the library. No matter how much she thinks about it, sending Sejun to the 67th floor was a mistake. She wonders how long a tower farmer can hold out against those locusts, because they are becoming more dangerous with every passing second. Suddenly, the dragon lady's crystal ball starts glowing red. A system notification appears, asking Dragon Lady Eileen whether she wants to lift the block. She taps yes. We see that it is her grandpa, Kaiser, who immediately starts begging in front of Eileen, telling her that he was wrong and asking for forgiveness. He pleads with her to never block him again. Meanwhile, Dragon Lady Eileen is still processing everything. We get a recap of the previous events, how Sejun went to the 67th floor as a mid-manager to deal with the locusts, and whether he will be all right. Even though Dragon Lady Eileen is a tower administrator, she is unable to help him, which deeply upsets her. Kaiser notices this and feels disappointed that he cannot help her either. Suddenly, Kaiser realizes something and tells Eileen not to worry at all. He reminds her that Sejun is the best solo farmer. He entered the Black Tower on his own and survived the 99th floor using nothing but his bare hands, an achievement impressive even to mighty dragons. He influenced countless beings and turned them into his comrades so he could grow faster than anyone else. Above all, Sejun is the representative of the Black Dragon, chosen by none other than Eileen herself. So how could the Dragon Lady doubt her own judgment? As the scene shifts, we see Sejun eating detoxifying green onions while Theo attacks multiple purple locusts, chewing on green onions at the same time. Grandpa Kaiser tells Eileen that Sejun will be just fine, because he is the best solo farmer the tower has ever seen. We see Sejun using his dagger and scythe to cut down everything in his path. The scene shifts back again, showing our lucky golden cat, Theo, wondering what Sejun would have done if Theo had not packed an extra bunch of detoxifying green onions in his bag. Sejun simply smiles, gives a thumbs up, and tells manager Theo that he did a great job. Meanwhile, the rabbit princess is casting magic to protect everyone and deflect the locusts. She knows that red locusts are already dangerous, but now they have turned purple, meaning the locust population on the 67th floor has increased even more. She uses her water attribute skills and fires a water cannon, blasting the locusts away. A system notification pops up, informing Sejun that Guardian Princess and Guardian Theo have defeated a purple locust. Sejun gains 50% of the experience earned by both of them. Now Sejun looks at the situation more calmly, realizing that this might actually be an incredible opportunity to level up. We see Baby Bear, who is no longer a baby, returning to his giant form with his trusty wooden weapon, slamming it down on the purple locusts. Even Sejun throws his axe like Thor and recalls it back. Suddenly, Sejun is ambushed by a purple locust. Theo panics, thinking that Chairman Park is in danger. However, Sejun reveals another trick. The flame of companionship emerges and engulfs him, forming a protective armor around his body. He smiles and tells Theo that he is fine, as multiple purple locusts are reduced to smithereens. Theo and the rabbit princess are both shocked. Sejun explains that before coming to the 67th floor, the trusty flame granted him the flame of protection and friendship, so he is not the weakest anymore. Baby Bear happily calls Sejun his dad, proud of how reliable he is in battle. Even the rabbit princess realizes that if the Black Dragon had been in the Red Ribbon Kingdom in the past, things might have turned out very differently. However, Sejun turns serious and tells everyone that even so, there are simply too many purple locusts. Defeating them alone will not be possible. We see a massive swarm of purple locusts engulf a tower-like structure from top to bottom, dissolving it in seconds. Sejun and the others continue fighting relentlessly. Theo knows they are getting exhausted, and they may run out of detoxifying green onions soon. Even the warrior rabbit, despite being the strongest warrior of the rabbit clan, is starting to feel the strain. Sejun realized that everyone was getting tired. Baby Bear was barely holding on, relying on his immense strength. Sejun wore a disappointed expression, knowing that if the Minotaurs had been there to protect them, things would have been different. Or if Iona the wizard head were present, the situation would improve drastically. Suddenly, something clicked. Sejun smiled, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. He realized that he could bring Iona there right now. He took out the interdimensional key he had obtained when he rescued Bat-Bat. Just as multiple purple locusts rushed toward him, he immediately activated the key, summoning a dimensional portal. He began pounding on the gate, calling for Iona to open it. This shocked the hamster wizard, who opened the gate with a frantic expression, wondering what was going on. At first, she thought Sejun needed the room and told him that the upgrade was almost complete. However, she quickly realized something was wrong as the air outside grew increasingly toxic. Sejun told her that he needed her help. Before Sejun could explain further, Iona herself noticed the purple locusts swarming across the forest. The tall structure nearby had already been destroyed. The purple locusts soon noticed the wizard head as well, viewing her as their next prey. But Iona did not back down. Her expression turned serious, quite intense for a hamster. She raised her staff and began channeling lightning energy, which glowed purple. As her magic staff fully charged, she unleashed Giga Lightning. The entire sky turned purple with lightning, destroying countless purple locusts as they exploded like firecrackers. Even Sejun was shocked by the sheer power the small hamster possessed. Baby Bear cheered excitedly at the spectacle, along with the other creatures. The rabbit princess smiled brightly, while the warrior rabbit observed silently. Theo, unlike ordinary cats, was completely captivated by the scene unfolding before him. As the scene shifts, Sejun turns back toward the dimensional gate as Iona descends from the sky. Purple locusts continue to be blown into smithereens by the lightning strikes, leaving Sejun in awe. A system notification appears, informing Sejun that the system has been updated. The mid-manager is now tasked with exterminating the purple locusts on the 67th floor of the tower. Out of 700 million purple locusts, 50,000 have been defeated, granting Sejun 3 million experience points and 50,000 tower coins. Failure will result in Sejun being unable to return to their original location until the quest is complete. Sejun is shocked, not only by the massive experience gain, but also by the realization that 700 million purple locusts still remain. Baby Bear returns to his normal size, and everyone stares at the system window, unsure of what to do next. Iona reassures them, explaining that once the numbers decrease, the purple locusts will revert back to red locusts, making them easier to defeat. However, due to the toxic air, Iona begins to look pale and suddenly collapses. Before she can hit the ground, Theo leaps forward and catches her, gently placing her near the gate. He tells Iona that since she was affected by locust poison, she should eat a detoxifying green onion immediately. Under the influence of the hallucinating poison, Theo appears even more impressive in Iona's eyes. She compliments him for his incredible magic and expresses relief that they are on the same side. As Iona bites into a chunk of detoxifying green onion like a cute little hamster, she blushes intensely at the praise. Meanwhile, the warrior rabbit scans the surroundings and informs Sejun that he no longer senses any locust presence nearby. Sejun feels relieved and decides that they should take a break inside the dimensional space he unlocked. As the scene shifts, the warrior rabbit, Baby Bear, and the rabbit princess enter the dimensional space, their eyes sparkling with amazement. When Sejun enters with Theo and Iona, he is mesmerized by the cozy atmosphere. The dimensional space has transformed into a place perfectly suited for Christmas. Sejun compliments Iona on how beautifully she decorated the place. The hamster smirks and tells Sejun that a simple task like this is easy for her. At that moment, Sejun gets another idea. He realizes that if he uses the dimensional space permanently, he could summon his comrades anytime, without even designating them as subordinates. This was truly a game-changing idea, as Sejun watched all the creatures laughing and playing together. Suddenly, he noticed that Baby Bear was eating something and wondered what it was. Baby Bear immediately showed him a piece of meat and told Sejun that the locusts struck by the lightning attack were actually delicious. However, when everyone else smelled it, it did not seem good at all. Sejun made a strange face, and even Theo wanted to throw it away, knowing it did not look like something they should eat. But as the foul smell faded, Sejun realized that the scent beneath it was similar to chicken. He suddenly remembered that back on Earth, locusts were often said to taste like chicken. Sejun immediately bowed in front of Iona, asking whether she could modify the small brazier to make it do something more. As the scene shifts outside the dimensional space, the environment is unpleasant. However, inside the space, a delicious aroma fills the air. Even Sejun starts drooling along with Baby Bear, realizing that what they had done was completely insane. The brazier had been modified into a roaster, with multiple pieces of locust meat skewered around it, cooking slowly. Juices dripped down as the meat roasted, releasing an incredibly appetizing scent. Baby Bear watched happily. A system notification appeared, informing Sejun that the achievement, first to cook roasted purple locust in the tower, had been unlocked. It was registered under cooking level 4, with proficiency slightly increased. As the locust meat continued to roast, the system announced that a special effect had been applied due to Sejun's cooking level. The recipe, stuffing purple locusts with detoxifying green onions and roasting them over indirect heat, made the meat lean and savory. Because of skillful cooking, both the meat and green onions were perfectly cooked, resulting in a tender texture and excellent taste. The process also detoxified the poison in the meat, granting low-level poison resistance to anyone who ate it. This dish was rated C+ grade. When Sejun lifted one skewer, he was shocked by the sheer size of the meat. He told all the cute monsters to try it, assuring them that it was fully cooked. Still, Theo found it unsettling. Even though it smelled good, roasting the entire body looked a bit disgusting. Baby Bear seized the opportunity and immediately grabbed the whole piece, telling Theo that he would eat it no matter what. Sejun calmly scolded Baby Bear, warning him that it would be hot, but the bear did not care. He tossed it into the air to cool it down, then blew on it with his mouth. The shell cracked without breaking apart, revealing soft, tender meat inside. The juicy meat melted in his mouth and tasted heavenly. Baby Bear enjoyed it immensely and started gulping it down at an incredible speed. Theo stared in disbelief, wondering how the bear could eat something that had looked so nasty moments ago. But soon, even Theo started drooling, and the other monsters began wondering if they should try it too. Sejun walked to the roaster and pulled out another skewer, telling everyone that there was plenty to eat and that they should eat slowly and enjoy it. He told them not to be shy and to ask for more whenever they wanted. The cute creatures accepted the food as if they were receiving blessings from heaven. As they ate, Sejun finally took a bite himself. After an entire year and such a long break, the taste filled him with bliss. Everyone was mesmerized, eating again and again. Sejun realized that the flavor was exactly like the roasted chicken he used to eat back home. But as the scene shifts back to the dimensional gate, we see that the delicious aroma has attracted various monsters outside. 3 peculiar monsters with yellow, blue, and red eyes appear near the dimensional entrance, believing that whatever was happening inside was completely unforgivable. The scene shifts back inside the dimensional space, where we see every monster sleeping cutely on top of one another. Sejun was also sleeping on a hanging bed, his mouth still drooling from the deliciousness of the food. However, Theo was trying to get out of the dimensional pocket. He had eaten too much and was so bloated that he could not even sleep. As he walked outside, we saw a shadow with a frog-like silhouette that came insanely close to Theo, ready to nab him and stuff him inside a jute bag. While Theo was contemplating whether he should go out for a walk, his head was suddenly covered with a bag. He screamed in a cute cat voice, wondering what was going on. It turned out to be a frog-like creature acting stealthy, accusing Theo of releasing the purple locusts in the Navia swamp. The frog believed it was because of the innocent golden cat, who was clueless about what was going on, that countless comrades had died. Theo's face was visible outside the jute bag as he was dragged through the water. He wondered what the frog was talking about, but the frog was not ready to listen at all. It declared that, starting with Theo, it would deal with the others too. Theo started crying and begged the frog to wait. He introduced himself as the tower's mid-level wandering merchant, the golden cat Theo. The frog refused to believe him, saying that a wandering merchant would never come this deep into such a dangerous location. However, the frog's companions stopped the kidnapper and told him to look at the cat's neck. When they did, they saw a silver wandering merchant badge, proving that Theo was telling the truth. Theo sat down innocently, shaking violently from fear after being kidnapped. The other 2 frogs wondered why a wandering merchant would be present near the Navia swamp. A 3rd frog suggested that the badge might be fake or stolen. Hearing this, Theo frantically explained that it was a misunderstanding. He said they had come to eliminate the purple locusts and save the jewel frogs who were being hunted by them. Theo continued in a panicked voice, saying that he was a subordinate of the tower administrator, the one and only black dragon. He demanded that the frogs let him go immediately. The frogs were not ready to believe that the black dragon himself had come to save them. Theo reassured them and told them that if they did not believe him, they should try knocking on the door nearby, because the black dragon was sleeping inside and would prove that Theo was telling the truth. However, just imagining the giant black dragon made the frogs even more hesitant. They feared that the black dragon would become furious if his sleep was disturbed, especially after they had treated his subordinate this way. Theo stood there trembling while the frogs debated what to do, unwilling to open the gate. Theo wondered what he should do since the frogs refused to open the gate. At that moment, one of the frogs came up with a strange idea. They decided to take Theo to Lord Geron, who would know what to do. Theo asked who Geron was, but the frogs immediately tied him to a long bamboo stick. 2 of them lifted the stick and carried the newly captured cat away. Theo screamed continuously, calling out for Chairman Park to come and save him. Inside the dimensional portal, Sejun scratched his ear in his sleep, thinking it was just a mosquito whispering, and continued sleeping peacefully. Outside, Theo kept screaming for breath, shouting that he was a mid-level wandering merchant, the great Lord Theo, and ordering the frogs to put him down. Annoyed by the noise, the frogs threw him against a rock, assuming that such a noisy cat must be fake. After a moment, everyone calmed down. The green frog approached Theo, while the blue frog removed the bag from his head. The green frog apologized, explaining that they had lost too many comrades recently and had to be careful. Only then did Theo realize that the ones who kidnapped him were actually the ones they were meant to save, the jewel frogs themselves. There were 3 of them, 1 blue, 1 light green, and 1 dark green. Theo became furious. He had come to save the jewel frogs, yet they treated the great merchant like a captive. He scolded them angrily, asking if they had any idea how hard they had fought the purple locusts for the jewel frogs' safety. But suddenly, as Theo was scolding the three jewel frogs, a heavy voice echoed from the swamp, asking how he dared to act this way. Seeing this, Theo was shocked. He turned around and looked toward the swamp, which was bubbling violently as air surged from within. From the dirty swamp, a massive silhouette slowly emerged, a giant jewel frog. The creature spoke in a deep voice, demanding to know who dared scream so loudly and disturb his sleep. The giant jewel frog was so enormous that even the smaller jewel frogs trembled in fear for a moment. However, they quickly knelt down before the massive creature and addressed him as the king of the jewel frogs, the greatest and largest among their kind. Meanwhile, Lord Jaron, the jewel frog king, was furious at Theo. He believed that Theo had continuously harmed him and their brethren. The swamp water surged violently, splashing everywhere and completely soaking the golden cat once again. Even though Theo desperately tried to dry himself, the impact was too great, and he was knocked unconscious on the spot. The blue jewel frog quickly spoke up, informing their lord, none other than Lord Jaron, that they had captured the cat from the area with the strongest poison concentration in the swamp. Hearing this, the jewel frog king assumed that Theo was the one who had released the damn bugs into the swamp. Theo, however, did not even have the strength to speak. His body was completely drenched, every muscle aching terribly. On top of that, he was terrified and unable to put any strength into his limbs. But then Theo began acting. This was what the old Theo would have done. Suddenly filled with energy, he stood tall and spoke loudly before Lord Jaron and the other jewel frogs, declaring that he was destined to become a great wandering merchant, and that he could not fall over something like this. Theo stood up proudly and introduced himself in his usual grand manner. This body belongs to the mid-level wandering merchant, the Golden Cat Theo. He demanded to know how Lord Jaron dared kidnap, threaten, and treat him in such a manner without any proof. Theo declared that the price for this insult would definitely be paid by none other than the jewel frogs themselves. What Theo believed to be an intimidating display was nothing more than a joke to the jewel frog king. Lord Jaron immediately raised one massive hand, intending to squash the tiny cat for his defiance, calling him an insignificant little thing. However, the dark green jewel frog stopped him. "Please wait, my lord," he said, explaining that according to Theo, he was a subordinate of the Black Dragon which could be useful to them. At this, even Lord Jaron began to sweat slightly. If the tower administrator Theo mentioned was truly the mighty Black Dragon, then the situation was far more serious than he initially thought. The three jewel frogs began speaking hurriedly to their king, explaining that if Theo was telling the truth, then harming him without reason could bring immense trouble upon them. They also reminded Lord Jaron that Theo had claimed to fight the dangerous purple locusts, creatures the jewel frogs themselves were helpless against. Perhaps Theo had really come to help them. Theo, however, was deeply annoyed. Not only did they doubt him, but now they were presenting his words to their lord as if the idea came from them. Still, for Lord Jaron, it was difficult to believe. Even he, the mighty jewel frog king, was currently recovering in the swamp after being poisoned by those bugs. There was no way a tiny cat could handle monsters that attacked everything they encountered. At that moment, Theo seized the opportunity. He opened his bag and spoke confidently. "If that's the case, then you should eat this." From Theo's magical bag emerged a beautifully roasted piece of purple locust meat. Theo explained with shining eyes that if Lord Jaron ate it, he would be completely fine. Technically, the effect came from the detoxifying green onion stuffed inside, but Theo did not bother explaining that detail. Before anyone could react, a massive tongue shot forward and grabbed the roasted meat. Lord Jaron ate it instantly, purely because it smelled delicious, without caring about its effects. Theo was stunned by the sheer size of the jewel frog king's tongue. The subordinates hesitated, wondering if their lord should really eat something just because it smelled good. Before they could even finish speaking, Lord Jaron began acting strangely. He felt something stirring inside his body. The jewel frogs feared something terrible was happening within their lord. Then suddenly, a sparkling light enveloped the massive frog. Blissful sounds escaped his mouth as rainbow-colored light filled the area. When the light finally faded, Lord Jaron spoke in a refreshed voice. His body felt incredibly light and rejuvenated. The once intimidating jewel frog king now looked completely different, giant yet slimy, adorned with multiple colors, with a radiant rainbow-colored jewel shining on his head. Moments ago, he was terrifying. Now he behaved like a spoiled puppy, eagerly asking what Theo had fed him because it was unbelievably delicious. The giant frog wondered what on earth the dish was because he felt that the toxins inside his body were completely gone. He asked Theo whether he had any more of it. The cat let out a devilish laugh, knowing that it was a good thing he was lucky. He had kept a few roasted locusts aside, just in case. It was because of this food that the jewel frog king was finally willing to discuss a deal with him. As the scene shifts, we see multiple purple locusts attacking the lizard men. The lizard men were slicing them in half using their swordsmanship skills, but the moment the toxins touched their bodies, the situation became even more terrifying and impossible to handle. A massive purple locust swarm grew increasingly enraged, closing in on the lizard men who were barely holding their ground. We come to know that the leader of the lizard men guard was named Tamurao. All the other monsters on the 67th floor were confused, wondering why the numbers of locusts were not decreasing at all. They were also running out of detoxifying green onions, and the situation was spiraling out of control. Tamurao knew this could not continue any longer. As the purple swamp crept closer, only a few inches away, he wondered if this was truly the end for them. Suddenly, a massive familiar tongue appeared out of nowhere. In a single motion, it grabbed dozens of purple locusts and swallowed them whole. A thunderous burp followed, along with a satisfied voice commenting that the locusts were really delicious. It was none other than Lord Jaron, who had come to rescue the lizard men. Everyone was shocked to see the Jewel Frog King eating the poisonous locusts without suffering any ill effects. Lord Jaron then revealed his true power after being fully rejuvenated. He began spinning his tongue like a helicopter, sweeping through the swarm and devouring countless locusts without even pausing to digest them. As the frog continued consuming the locusts again and again, the lizard men realized that the Jewel Frog King was eating tens of thousands at a time. They stared in disbelief, wondering just who this overwhelming being truly was. Lord Jaron finally introduced himself. The multicolored jewel on his head gleamed brilliantly as he declared that he was the king of the Jewel Frogs and the master of Navia Swamp, Lord Jaron. Standing proudly atop the giant frog's head was a tiny golden cat, none other than a subordinate of the Black Dragon. He introduced himself as the mid-level wandering merchant, the Golden Cat Theo. We then learned that Theo had formed a contract with the Jewel Frog King earlier. Because of that contract, Lord Jaron was now assisting him by single-handedly resolving the purple locust crisis. Some of the subordinates hesitated, wondering whether it was truly safe for their lord to eat so many poisonous locusts at once. However, none of them dared to object, since Lord Jaron's life had been saved by Theo himself. As the scene shifts again, we see Theo riding atop the massive but surprisingly cute Jewel Frog King. Theo ordered Lord Jaron to eat as many purple locusts as possible and to fill his stomach until he was completely satisfied. Hearing this, Lord Jaron leaped straight into the heart of the purple locust swarm, which was engulfing the entire area. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the dimensional space. Sejun finally woke up, along with the other monsters. As he stretched and looked around, he frowned slightly, wondering where the golden cat Theo had gone. And with that, this chapter comes to an end. But here, another surprise. 6 continuous chapters are going to be released next. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss the upcoming parts. Enjoy the holidays as we finally return to the story with Sejun and Theo, the golden cat. Thanks for watching. Now Sejun was genuinely worried. He wondered whether everyone was ready, because they had to head out and find Theo and figure out where he had gone. Baby Bear and the warrior rabbit were already prepared, along with the others. The princess, however, was confused, wondering where the golden cat could have gone all by himself in the middle of the night. Even Iona was worried, knowing that the area outside must still be swarming with locusts. That was exactly why Sejun knew he had to find the cat quickly, otherwise things could easily go wrong. Meanwhile, the black rabbit stepped forward and raised his chest proudly, telling the princess that no matter what happened, he swore he would protect her at all costs. The princess blushed slightly and replied that she believed he would, calling him Sir Knight. Hearing this, the black rabbit turned red himself, flustered by her words. Sejun then told everyone to get ready, as he finally reached for the dimensional door. The moment the door opened, everyone rushed out with all their magic power and physical strength, shouting at the top of their lungs, "Avengers, assemble!" and telling the bugs to bring it on. But the moment they stepped outside, they froze. There was nothing. The surroundings were completely desolate. Only the dimensional gate stood behind them, with no enemies in sight. Sejun quickly realized that the area they had previously cleared was still safe. Suddenly, the black rabbit's ears twitched. He raised his hand and told everyone to wait. Focusing carefully on the sound, he sensed something massive approaching their position. Sejun immediately tensed up, wondering what it could be. The princess speculated that it might be a new breed of locust, but Iona shook her head, saying that it shouldn't be possible. Even so, Sejun tightened his grip on his axe and told everyone to brace themselves for whatever was coming. What happened next shocked him to his core. A giant frog suddenly leaped straight over their heads, casting an enormous shadow over Sejun and the others. Everyone screamed in alarm as the massive creature landed heavily in the swamp, the impact splashing muddy water everywhere and soaking everyone nearby. As the water settled, they noticed a small silhouette clinging desperately to the frog. It was Theo, barely hanging on. Theo looked at his companions with a smug grin and teased them, asking if they had all been waiting for the mighty Theo, the golden cat. Iona stared in disbelief, completely confused by what she was seeing. Sejun quickly asked Theo if he was all right. Theo replied proudly that he was completely fine, and casually added that he had even made a new subordinate named Jaron. Sejun blinked. Who is Jaron? Theo explained that thanks to Jaron, they had wiped out a massive number of purple locusts. At that moment, the giant jewel frog king noticed the mark on Sejun's hand, the unmistakable crest of the black dragon. Without hesitation, Lord Jaron, along with multiple jewel frogs, immediately bowed before Sejun. They explained that they had been able to overcome the locusts thanks to the dish Sejun had cooked, and that it had helped them immensely. Sejun wondered aloud whether these frogs were different from the ones on the 75th floor. Iona explained that these were jewel frogs, and they were the very targets their team was supposed to protect for this mission. Lord Jaron was none other than the king of the jewel frogs, and at that moment, Theo was sitting cutely on his head. Iona could hardly believe that the golden cat had managed to make such a powerful being his subordinate entirely on his own. She stared at Theo in awe, wondering just who he truly was to possess such influence. Theo, however, didn't care about that at all. Instead, he immediately turned to Sejun and asked if he had done a good job. Sejun, though still nervous, was also extremely curious about how Theo had managed all of this. Theo, however, had no intention of explaining anything just yet. First came the treats and the churros. Since he had done such a good job, he deserved at least that much. Clinging tightly to Sejun's legs, Theo urged him to go back inside. Sejun opened the dimensional door again and told everyone that they would talk inside. Theo was already smiling, imagining the treats he was about to receive. But as Sejun turned around, he noticed Lord Jaron hesitating, clearly wondering how he would fit through the entrance. Sejun explained apologetically that although he would love to invite him inside, the entrance was simply too small. Lord Jaron proved himself to be a wise and understanding king. He calmly replied that Sejun need not worry about that. Suddenly, the multicolored jewel on Lord Jaron's head began to shine brilliantly. The light was so intense that everyone had to close their eyes to protect themselves. As the glow intensified, something incredible happened. Slowly but surely, Lord Jaron's massive body began to shrink. When the light finally faded, the once giant jewel frog king had transformed into a cute, chubby frog, even smaller than the other jewel frogs. Sejun stared in amazement and wondered aloud whether Lord Jaron was similar to Baby Bear, someone who could shrink and expand at will. Hearing this, the king laughed lightly and told Sejun that it was nothing special. Iona immediately rushed forward to examine the newly transformed frog, her curiosity completely overflowing. While Sejun was happily telling everyone that they should have a meal together, the scene shifted back into the cozy dimensional space once again. Iona was yelling at Theo, just like a worried girlfriend, asking the cat whether he even had any idea how worried the hamster had been after he vanished in the middle of the night. Theo, however, was completely relaxed, knowing that nothing bad had actually happened. He also knew better than to mention that he had been kidnapped and had nearly died, because that would only make things worse for him. As the scene shifted toward Sejun, we saw that the entire fireplace had been completed and was now being upgraded once again so that he could cook more food inside it. Theo and the others gathered around, drooling uncontrollably when they saw a delicious-looking stew. The dish was called Purple Chef's Potato Stew. It was made from thinly sliced purple locust meat, combined with detoxifying green onions and strength potatoes, all boiled together for a long time so the ingredients could blend harmoniously and enhance each other's effects. Upon consumption, strength would increase by 10.5 for 30 minutes, the user would feel full for 4 hours, and gain low-level poison resistance. Everyone lined up eagerly as the food was cooked inside a giant clay pot. Sejun told everyone to line up and take their portions so they could eat their fill. When the Black Warrior Rabbit ate, he felt completely satisfied, both in body and soul. Iona ate quietly, while the jewel frogs also enjoyed the meal, amazed by how delicious it was, especially the detoxifying green onions and the purple locust meat. One of the jewel frogs thought it was miraculous. Normally, just touching the skin of a red locust would melt a frog's skin due to its toxicity, but thanks to the green onions, the detoxification effect was incredible. Meanwhile, the cute jewel frog king was extremely pleased, saying that this was exactly what one would expect from the black dragon. Thanks to this food, they could finally fight the locusts properly. Sejun encouraged everyone to eat well and regain their strength so they could finish exterminating the purple locusts. However, for the jewel frogs, the feeling was bittersweet. They had to eliminate the bugs, but knowing they would no longer be able to eat this delicious dish afterward was heartbreaking. Sejun smiled and told everyone that there was something he hadn't told them yet. He gestured for everyone to follow him, saying that he wanted to show them something. As everyone followed Sejun, he stopped in front of a wooden door. Even Theo was curious, wondering what that door was, since the last time he had seen it, he was too busy eating to pay attention. Sejun then explained that he had asked Yona to create a special space. When the door was opened, everyone was stunned. Inside was a massive freezer, filled with an enormous number of frozen purple locusts. Iona had originally frozen them as research samples for the Wizards Association. According to her, it was fine for Sejun to use some of them as cooking ingredients. Baby Bear couldn't tolerate the cold and immediately started sneezing non-stop. The jewel frogs wondered whether freezing the locusts would make them taste better. As the temperature dropped further, the jewel frog king began growing sleepier with every passing second, while even Theo started shivering from the cold. Sejun realized that the monsters were unfamiliar with the concept of cold storage. He explained that keeping things cold prevents them from rotting, allowing them to be stored and eaten for a long time. Thanks to Yona, they now had a massive freezer where they could preserve ingredients. Yona blushed at the praise, explaining that setting up a semi-permanent freezing magic circle over such a large space was actually very high-level magic, but she had still managed to do it. Everyone was surprised by how capable Yona truly was. Baby Bear began climbing on the giant ice cubes, while the princess wondered if they should freeze the detoxifying green onions as well so they wouldn't go to waste. Sejun told everyone that the green onions were fine, since he could simply farm more. The jewel frogs didn't understand the concept of farming and asked what it was. Sejun started to explain, but midway through, he realized everyone had begun sneezing and coughing because it was far too cold. By then, the jewel frog king had already fallen asleep, entering hibernation. Meanwhile, both Yona and the green jewel frog were completely fine. At that moment, Sejun came up with a great idea. The scene then shifted to the administrator tower, where Eileen was flipping through multiple books at the same time. She was reading intensely, wondering what she should do until Sejun returned, knowing she needed to grant him the proper authority as a mid-level manager so he wouldn't face such difficulties again. She kept reading book after book, until suddenly her eyes lit up. She had found something. The book itself was magical, its letters glowing brightly. Eileen hugged the blue book tightly, feeling relieved. She knew that this was it, that she had finally found the solution. Confident that Sejun would return safely to the 99th floor, she held the book close, reassured that everything would be all right. Guys, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I know you all are awesome. And you all can do it in no time, so please hit the subscribe button right now, and now enjoy the story further. As the scene shifts, we come to the lizard men, along with the wolf tribe guards and the others, who were relieved and happy that the evacuation of the wounded was complete. They could no longer feel any locust presence around the area. Finally, the lizard men were able to breathe again, and some of them began to think that the fight was finally over. However, the leader Tamurao stopped everyone and told them that it was far too early to celebrate. The war was not over yet. He reminded them that both Manager Theo and Lord Jaron, who had played massive roles in the battle, had headed toward the swamp first. They could still be fighting even now. The lizard men, who owed their lives to them, could not simply stand by and do nothing. With morale running high, everyone gathered together and decided to march toward the swamp to protect them. But when the scene shifts and they finally reach the swamp, they are met with a completely unexpected sight. Instead of a battlefield, they see Baby Bear, along with the other monsters, calmly planting detoxifying green onions and bladed green onions into the ground. Sejun and Theo were supervising their work, guiding them on how to properly plant the crops. The lizard men arrived in confusion, wondering what exactly was happening. Yona noticed the lizard men lord and was genuinely happy to see that they had arrived just in time. The lizard men were shocked, especially Tamurao, because Yona, the head of the Tower Wizard Association, was actually farming. Tamurao wondered what on earth was going on. Sejun smiled slightly and explained that they were putting an end to the battle with the locusts once and for all. Thanks to the idea of the great black dragon, who stood behind them, the lizard men finally realized that the boy before them was the representative of the black dragon. They noticed that Sejun's eyes were glowing faintly, as if he had awakened some new power, while he instructed the jewel frogs to plant green onions across specific areas of the swamp. Theo, on the other hand, was completely baffled. He asked why they were going through all this trouble of splitting the green onions and planting them everywhere. Sejun explained that green onions must be planted in well-drained soil, because they would not grow properly in soil that was too damp. Thanks to his plantation skill, which had now reached level 5, Sejun could clearly see which ground was suitable for which crops. In this situation, the skill was proving to be far more useful than he had ever imagined. Soon, even the army of the lizard men began helping the jewel frogs plant the green onions. As the farming continued at full pace, Sejun thought that once it was complete, the 67th floor would be able to handle the locusts on its own. From the very beginning, His goal had been to prevent the extinction of the jewel frogs in Navia Swamp on the 67th floor. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. At the same time, the Black Warrior Rabbit sensed something unusual. The princess asked what was wrong, and the Warrior Rabbit announced that the purple locusts were finally coming. Another massive swarm was heading straight toward them at incredible speed. The Warrior Rabbit readied his trusted hammer. A giant swarm of purple locusts hovered above their heads. Everyone panicked for a brief moment, but soon calmed down. After all, Sejun was with them. Sejun immediately announced that everyone should chew the detoxifying green onions and use their bladed green onions as weapons to slash the locusts in half. Baby Bear grumbled in annoyance, saying that no matter how many times he saw those purple locusts, they were always disgusting and filthy. As the scene shifts, we see Jewel Frogs, Baby Bear, and the Lizard Men preparing to fight the swarm while consuming the detoxifying green onions, granting them immunity to poison for 1 hour. Sejun declared that their sole mission was to protect Navia Swamp. He took out his dagger and axe, ready to fight alongside his trusted companions. Now we see Iona, who is continuously launching lightning attacks, turning the purple locusts into exploding firecrackers with ease. Baby Bear swung his massive wooden log, smashing the red locusts out of the air. The Black Warrior Rabbit and the Lizard Men fought fiercely with swords and hammers, determined to destroy as many purple locusts as possible. At the center of it all was Sejun, dual-wielding his weapons and hacking his way through the swarm, breaking their formation with relentless precision. Meanwhile, Theo released the Jewel Frog King from his arms. As Lord Jaron leapt forward, the jewel on his back began to shine brilliantly once again with multiple colors. In moments, the frog returned to his original massive size, his stomach expanding as hunger surged through him. Staring at the purple locusts as if they were nothing more than delicious snacks, Lord Jaron began swinging his tongue like a helicopter once again, instantly grabbing multiple locusts in a single sweep. The frog ate in the thousands without even hesitating, gulping them down one after another. Those who had never seen this before were completely shocked, including Sejun and the princess. They found it incredible and wanted the Jewel Frog King to keep going. Meanwhile, the other Jewel Frogs also joined in. Even though they were small, they began eating the purple locusts as well, because they were no longer poisonous at all. The leader Tamurao was slashing as many purple locusts as he could, cutting them cleanly in half. But then he noticed something shocking. The purple locusts were changing color. Tamurao's eyes widened as he realized that the locusts were degenerating and slowly turning back into red locusts. He felt relief wash over him as hope returned. A system notification appeared, making everyone happy, including Sejun. He read it aloud, announcing that as the locust population decreased, they were degenerating from purple locusts back into their original red locust form. Sejun smiled and encouraged all the cute creatures, big and small, to keep pushing them back. Everyone shouted in unison as they launched another wave of attacks. Finally, as the scene shifts, we see Thea letting out a sigh of relief. Everyone else had also finished their part of the battle. Thea was happy that they had won without anyone getting hurt, realizing that this was the true power of the bladed green onions and detoxifying green onions. Even Lord Jaron, the Jewel Frog King, was burping loudly after his feast, clearly satisfied. One of the Lizard Men soldiers approached Sejun and respectfully called him the Great Black Dragon. 2 Jewel Frogs followed shortly after, bowing deeply and thanking him for saving them. The Jewel Frogs promised that from now on, they would farm both the bladed green onions and detoxifying green onions themselves. They swore to exterminate the remaining locusts and protect Navia Swamp on their own. At that moment, a system notification informed Sejun that he had finally completed the mid-level manager quest after almost 1 full year. As a reward, he obtained 3 million experience points and 50,000 tower coins. Sejun could hardly believe it. He felt that he had achieved an incredible feat. Just then, the Lizard Men leader Tamurao stepped forward again, also calling Sejun the Great Black Dragon. Tamurao confessed honestly that he had been largely responsible for the entire situation. Sejun received 1 extra stat point and wondered what Tamurao meant. A flashback followed. It revealed that the Lizard Men had trusted Tarek the pig, who was actually the mastermind behind feeding the locusts even after they had been subdued. Tamurao had received continuous rewards from him and never once suspected anything was wrong. Now, Tamurao placed a reward box in his hands and opened it, showing Sejun the item he had received from the pig. He offered it up, wanting to sacrifice it to the Great Black Dragon. Sejun refused. He told Tamurao that it was fine, and instead instructed the Lizard Men to use that reward to restore the 67th floor after the destruction caused by the battle. A blue aura suddenly surrounded everyone who had come from the upper floor. A system notification announced that they would be returning to the 99th floor in 30 seconds. Hearing this, the lizardmen leader was deeply moved. The jewel frogs were also surprised by the generosity of the legendary black dragon. Soon, the blue aura completely enveloped everyone. They were shot upward into the sky and teleported back to the 99th floor of the tower. Finally, after almost 1 year, they were witnessing the 99th floor once again. Even Sejun felt emotional, realizing how long it had been. The fresh air felt incredible after such a long time. The black wolf, white wolf, the entire rabbit family, and the cute little bunnies rushed forward, shocked and overjoyed that their master, Sejun, had finally returned. Sejun knelt down, checking on everyone and marveling at how much the baby rabbits had grown. He petted them affectionately, admitting how much he had missed them. Suddenly, Theo glanced behind him and noticed something strange. Sneaking quietly onto the 99th floor was none other than Lord Jaron, the Jewel Frog King. Theo was shocked that Jaron had followed them all the way up. Meanwhile, Sejun asked the mother rabbit and father rabbit about Bat-Bat, wondering how he was doing and whether he had adjusted well, since it had been so long since they last saw him. The mother rabbit pointed toward the house of Sejun they had built. Inside, multiple queen bees and worker bees were taking care of Bat-Bat, who was happily resting upside down in the shade, just as bats should. She explained that Bat-Bat was doing perfectly fine. Sejun also noticed that the fields looked amazing. The farm hadn't changed at all, and the new crops were fully grown, tomatoes, potatoes, and many other crops thriving beautifully. The farmer rabbit explained that the residents of Grainier Village were eager to help with the work. Even though they had all scattered earlier for their wandering merchant jobs, they had now returned and completed a great deal of work. Even the architect rabbits came over to Sejun, calling out to him and telling him that they had prepared something while he was away. They asked if he would like to follow them. As the scene shifts, we arrive near the pit below the 99th floor. Sejun immediately recognized the place. It was the cave where he had first entered the tower. As he looked around, he noticed something new on the floor, a trapdoor that had not been there before. Sejun opened it, and Theo peeked inside. We see that entering the cave was no longer troublesome, because the architect rabbits had built stairs that extended deep downward. Sejun began walking inside, noticing multiple candles lighting the entire area and preventing darkness from spreading. Sejun felt pleased seeing the staircase that led directly into the cave. He realized that from now on, they could come and go freely without needing someone above to pull them up. He immediately understood just how hard the architect rabbits must have worked on this. Meanwhile, we see the two cute little beings, whose names had been forgotten, along with Flame, all happily looking at their master. We also noticed that there were now multiple purifying Ents, whereas before there had only been one when Sejun left. Even Baby Bear wondered what was going on. We come to learn that the first Ent, named Pasaki, had produced more seeds. For Sejun, this was great news, as it meant that the flaming tree would now have more companions willing to protect her. Just then, a system notification appeared. It was revealed that Eileen was shocked to see that Sejun had returned. Sejun smiled and asked her how she had been doing. However, the dragon lady felt both relief and irritation at seeing his cheerful expression, making her feel foolish for worrying so much about the team she had sent. She brushed those feelings aside and told Sejun that more importantly, she had something to give him right now. Sejun was surprised, wondering what else there could be. Inside the administrator tower, Eileen opened the blue book and began channeling magic into the crystal orb. She told Sejun to think of it as a reward for all his hard work. As the spell took effect, Sejun was enveloped in a blue aura from head to toe. He was startled as he felt a powerful surge of energy flow through his body. Something had clearly changed. The dragon lady smiled calmly and told him to look forward to it, because she had finally found the greatest authority suitable for him. It was called the authority of an unbreakable body, granted to the mid-level manager Sejun. Only then did Sejun realize what it meant. With the unbreakable body, his physical body could never be broken. The realization shocked him, and he wondered in disbelief whether he had now become truly invincible. But as Sejun saw the blue energy fading away, he wondered why he was not feeling its power yet. Hearing this, Baby Bear decided to test it immediately. He took out his trusty wooden weapon and slammed it down with insane force straight onto Sejun's head. Sejun was startled and fell to the ground as smoke rose from his head due to the impact. When Baby Bear realized that Sejun's head had not fallen off, he became overjoyed, knowing that his dad had finally become strong. Even Thea realized that Sejun did not break, even after taking a full-powered strike from the bear. However, Sejun began crying, telling Baby Bear that he could still feel the pain exactly as before. He warned Baby Bear not to expect any dinner tonight for pulling such a cruel surprise attack. Sejun then turned toward the tower administrator and thanked her sincerely for the incredible gift. The dragon lady told Sejun that she would be leaving things in his care from now on. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. It informed Se-jun that a quest had been triggered. The job quest was to realize the joy of harvesting and to use the harvesting skill 100,000 times. The reward for completing it would be level 51, 50,000 tower coins, and all tower farmer job skills increasing by 1 level. However, completing 100,000 harvests was clearly not an easy task. As the scene shifts, we arrive at the Rabbit Kingdom floor, where Greed was staring at his old portrait like a narcissistic creature. A soldier approached Greed and informed him that there was an urgent report. After receiving permission to speak, the messenger explained that the Wandering Merchant Association had sent a summon to Greed. The situation was serious, because the fat pig Tarek had been captured after failing to kidnap the bunny princess. During interrogation, Tarek had mentioned Greed's name, making him a suspect as well. Greed's eyes filled with killing intent as he wondered how Tarek could be such a fool. Greed had treated him well, as Tarek was a fellow Boar elder, and had even entrusted him with an important relic to carry out the job. Now, due to Tarek's mistake, the Wandering Merchant Association, an organization funded by Greed, had dared to act against him. Greed turned toward the messenger and asked whether there was any concrete evidence linking him to Tarek. The messenger replied that there were indeed clues, as Yona, head of the Magic Association, and the Inspection Bureau led by Inspector Fox had carried out a joint operation. A flashback appears. We see Inspector Fox arresting Tarek on 8 criminal charges, including kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and blackmail. The authorities had secured Tarek's confession using a recording device. Tarek was completely exposed, revealing that he was the one who had fed the red locusts. Once everything was devastated and the food supply was gone, the 67th floor would fall under Lord Greed's control. After reading the summon, Greed tore it apart, dismissing the messenger and telling him to leave. He continued staring at his portrait, still unable to believe that the Merchant Association had summoned him and that he would be forced to step forward personally. Greed took a black book from a bookshelf, a book he had never read. This black book was actually the key to a hidden passage. As the bookshelf moved aside, Greed descended deeper underground and opened a massive gate with a giant golden bow symbol engraved on it. Beyond the gate stood a white dragon statue, surrounded by massive piles of gold scattered throughout the chamber. The sight revealed just how greedy the pig truly was. Suddenly, the white dragon statue began to speak. Hearing the voice, Greed immediately bowed in respect, greeting the great white dragon speaking through the statue. The white dragon's eyes glowed with crimson energy as they glared at Greed. The scene shifts back to the 99th floor cave. Rabbit farmers were harvesting cherry tomatoes, while other rabbits and ents watered the flame tree and nurtured new saplings. Baby Bear helped gather water from the nearby lake, while the small rabbit children looked up to their big brother in admiration. The bunny princess was treated generously, with the architect rabbits presenting her with everything they had harvested. Everyone noticed that Se-jun was counting numbers under his breath. As the scene shifts again, we see Se-jun, Theo, and the black rabbit pulling on something firmly rooted in the ground. No matter how hard they tried, they failed to uproot it. The red vine with multiple leaves remained intact, standing firmly in place. Se-jun realized that what they were trying to uproot was no joke. Even Theo had never seen such a huge sweet potato vine before, knowing that there was definitely a massive sweet potato buried underground. Hearing the words massive sweet potato, Baby Bear felt a sudden surge of strength as his eyes started sparkling. He began growing bigger and bigger, grabbing the vine and pulling it with all the strength he had. Meanwhile, both Se-jun and Theo stepped back and started cheering loudly for Baby Bear. Baby Bear screamed with all his power, and as the sweet potato slowly began emerging from the ground, both Theo and Se-jun made exaggerated, shocked faces. Finally, the entire sweet potato came out, and Baby Bear returned to his baby form. A system notification appeared, informing Se-jun that it was a giant pumpkin sweet potato grown in the tower. It tasted delicious due to sufficient nutrients, but it had used all those nutrients solely for growth. As a result, it provided no effects when consumed and would not sprout even if planted. It was a grade C crop with an expiration date of 45 days. Everyone climbed all over it, unable to believe that such a giant sweet potato was right in front of them. Even Se-jun knew that this sweet potato was incredible. Just one of them would be enough to feed everyone. Baby Bear could not wait any longer, and told his dad that he wanted to eat it immediately. However, when Se-jun looked at his current mission, he saw that he had only used the harvest skill approximately 3,000 times, even though he needed to use it 100,000 times. He wondered when he would ever finish it. Still, Se-jun turned around and looked at the happy, cute monsters and announced that they should eat first. Baby Bear had worked hard, and even the punishment he had received earlier was officially taken back. He would get dinner after all. Everyone smiled cheerfully. Sejun took out the dimensional space key and opened the dimensional gate directly into the cave on the 99th floor. He told Baby Bear to take out 10 purple locusts from inside. Baby Bear immediately ran in and started pulling out purple locusts. The wolf chief stared in confusion, while the other rabbits found the locusts disgusting. Theo quickly told everyone not to judge them by appearance alone, explaining that they actually tasted incredible. The rabbits looked at him doubtfully. The scene shifts again as Sejun and the others began cooking purple locust sweet potato soup once more. As it cooked, Sejun tasted it bit by bit, carefully adjusting the ingredients. The mother rabbit watched nervously, thinking the stew looked suspicious. Sejun was satisfied with the result, knowing that adding the giant sweet potato for extra sweetness had been the right decision. It made the flavor richer. He handed the first bowl to the artist rabbit, asking him to try it, but no one dared to move. Even the mother rabbit was shivering, disturbed by the stew's appearance. Suddenly, the chubby rabbit stepped forward without hesitation, grabbed the bowl, and started eating non-stop. He finished it in mere seconds and gave everyone a look that clearly said he had gone to heaven. Sejun asked the chubby rabbit if he wanted another bowl. The rabbit immediately ran back enthusiastically. Seeing that the stew was safe, the other rabbits finally relaxed. Even the artist rabbit and the mother rabbit began eating, while the baby rabbits could only sniff the delicious aroma. The mother rabbit carefully fed tiny portions to the bobbies. The architect rabbit found the stew incredibly delicious, and Sejun continued serving bowls one by one to everyone lined up. The next bowl was offered to Yona, but she declined, along with the princess and the black warrior rabbit. Yona explained that they had urgent business to attend to. The trial of Greed, the landlord of the 55th floor, was about to begin. The time had finally come to hold him accountable for his crimes and punish him accordingly. Sejun agreed, feeling relieved that the black warrior rabbit would be accompanying them, knowing they would be safe. Just then, Lord Geron returned and called out to Theo. Theo asked if the frog had enjoyed his walk outside, but Geron replied that he had discovered something unusual up on the 99th floor. Sejun immediately became curious and asked what it was. As the scene shifts, we return outside to the 99th floor farm, where Sejun and the others were staring upward in shock at something enormous casting a shadow over them, all wondering what it could possibly be. Guys, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I know you all are awesome, and you all can do it in no time, so please hit the subscribe button right now, and now enjoy the story further. We see that in front of Sejun and the others was not a monster or a giant being, but instead another giant crop. It had leaves so large that they worked like full-blown fans. Theo immediately realized that it was a giant carrot and wondered what they should do about it. Even the baby bear froze for a moment because this was too much even for him. Sejun wondered what they should do, thinking about whether they should dig up the surrounding earth to harvest the carrot properly. Theo told everyone not to worry, reminding them that he was the golden merchant cat. He then told Geron to transform into his usual larger form. As the jewel frog king grew in size, he prepared to pull the carrot out. He grabbed the leaves firmly and told everyone to leave it to him. Using all his strength, he pulled upward. The ground began to shake violently, and Geron used his utmost power, yet the carrot did not budge at all. Sejun could not believe it. Even with Geron's strength, it was impossible. He wondered what on earth was buried beneath the ground. Just then, Sejun heard a heavy thumping sound and turned to look. At the same time, the baby bear suddenly became excited. The reason was revealed immediately. The mother bear had returned to the 99th floor. However, the situation quickly turned dangerous. The jewel frog king and the red mother bear locked eyes, clearly ready to clash. Even though Sejun told them not to fight, he realized that since Geron had come from another floor, he had unintentionally offended the mother bear. Theo clutched his head, knowing that Geron was technically his subordinate, but he had no idea how to stop this confrontation. Before things escalated further, the baby bear ran between the red mother bear and the jewel frog king. He excitedly told his mother that there was a huge carrot buried in the ground and that he wanted to eat it as soon as possible. The mother bear snapped out of her aggressive stance and looked at the giant carrot leaves. The jewel frog king also paused. They stared at each other for a moment, and then Sejun suddenly had an idea. He told both giant creatures that instead of fighting, they should combine their strength and pull the carrot out together, since they were the two most powerful beings on the 99th floor. Fighting might be their instinct, but cooperation was possible. Both creatures hesitated, but in the end they agreed for the sake of the baby bear. They each grabbed the carrot leaves and began pulling upward with full force. The power they exerted was so immense that it caused a literal earthquake. Sejun wondered just how massive this carrot was to cause such tremors. The baby bear cheered loudly for his mother, telling her to hang in there. Both the mother bear and the jewel frog king struggled intensely, yet slowly, impossibly, the carrot began to rise. Everyone watched in disbelief. The giant carrot kept coming out, and it did not stop. Right in front of Sejun and the others, the golden carrot lifted completely out of the ground and began floating in the air. The mother bear nearly collapsed from exhaustion, while the jewel frog king stared in shock. Everyone else was frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. At that moment, a system notification appeared. It informed Sejun that he had harvested the Red Ribbon's giant carrot altar. His job experience increased greatly, and his harvesting level 4 proficiency also rose significantly. In addition, he obtained 10,000 experience points. Sejun was stunned. He wondered what exactly the Red Ribbon's giant carrot altar was. Hearing the system message, the father rabbit and the yellow rabbit children hurried over. Before Sejun could ask further questions, another system window appeared. It stated that Sejun must offer 100 crops of 10 different types to the Red Ribbon's giant carrot altar within 24 hours and hold the Harvest Festival of Abundance. The reward for completing the festival would be a job skill called Crop Gigantic. Sejun could hardly believe it. He had received a special quest tied to this floating carrot, and he now had to host something called the Harvest Festival of Abundance to obtain the reward. Meanwhile, the Jewel Frog King poked the floating carrot curiously, still confused about what it was. The father rabbit stepped forward and explained everything. He told Sejun that this was the legendary golden carrot altar passed down in the Red Ribbon Kingdom. According to the legends of the Black Tower, a giant golden carrot once rose from the ground, and a great conflict broke out among the rabbits over who would claim it. However, during the chaos, one great rabbit shouted for peace and shared his food in front of the golden carrot. Moved by his kindness, the other rabbits followed, sharing their own food one by one. Soon, a peaceful celebration was held before the golden carrot, a festival that later became known as the Harvest Festival of Abundance. But still, a question remained in Sejun's mind. Why would a carrot from the Red Ribbon Kingdom's legends appear on the 99th floor? The even bigger question, especially in the baby bear's mind, was that the carrot was not golden at all. However, Sejun realized that asking endless questions would not change anything. So he decided to follow the system's instructions, open the ribbon of the carrot, and hold the Harvest Festival of Abundance. As the scene shifts, Sejun finds himself in a dilemma counting the crops he currently has. These included carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, normal potatoes, and lastly, green onions. He took out 100 of each and wondered if that was enough. He found it strange, because he was sure he had planted a wider variety of crops. The farmer rabbit told Sejun that he was correct and asked him to follow him to another place, explaining that the farm had already expanded. As the scene shifts, Sejun saw juicy strawberries and even chili peppers, crops they had never eaten before. He could not believe that these crops had already been harvested, because he remembered buying their seeds long ago together with the carrots. The baby bear began drooling, realizing that he had never tasted these crops before, but instinctively feeling that they would be delicious. Sejun finally understood that the father rabbit had worked extremely hard as a tenant farmer while Sejun was away on the 67th floor. Thanks to his efforts, they now had 2 additional crop types to offer to the altar. Then the rabbit revealed that there were actually 3 additional crops. Sejun turned toward him in surprise, and the rabbit showed him peanuts. This made Sejun even happier, wondering how they were already ready for harvest. That was when Sejun realized that it must have been because of the mysterious stone monument. The rabbit confirmed this, explaining that Sejun was correct. The crops had been growing rapidly thanks to the monument's influence. Sejun realized that he needed to pay closer attention to the farm now that it had expanded so much. He thanked all the rabbits sincerely for raising the crops so well in his absence. As the rabbits started eating strawberries together with the baby bear, Sejun reviewed the crops they had cultivated so far. Carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, normal potatoes, green onions, strawberries, chili peppers, and peanuts. That made 9 types of crops. Sejun was missing one last type. As the baby bear grabbed multiple strawberries and stuffed them into his mouth, Sejun frowned slightly, realizing this was a problem. Suddenly, Theo remembered something and told Sejun that there was one more crop. Sejun asked what it was. Theo reminded him that when they went to the 75th floor, they had planted the yellow fruit obtained after defeating the Frog Queen. The baby bear called it Pine's Horn, but Sejun corrected him gently, explaining that it was called a pineapple. However, Sejun also realized that they had planted very few pineapples. Since they were planted recently, he doubted that even 10 had fully grown yet. By the time they harvested 100 pineapples for the festival, the other crops would begin to rot, wasting everything. To make matters worse, the seed shop had not opened yet, so Sejun was blocked there as well. Still, Sejun knew one thing for sure: overthinking would not solve anything. He decided to harvest relentlessly for now, while Theo and the others cheered him on, knowing that a massive amount of work awaited them. As the scene shifts, we move to the Merchants Association, inside the Merchant Passage Central Court. An owl judge called out to the defendant, who was none other than the pig Greed. The judge announced that the locust outbreak on the 67th floor had been deliberately instigated and aided by Greed and his subordinates. Greed was also charged with soliciting the kidnapping of Magic Association President Iona, as well as the Red Ribbon Kingdom's princess, Boo Boo. Furthermore, Greed was accused of committing treason, including releasing locusts on the 55th floor in the past to attack the Red Ribbon Kingdom, assassinating the king and queen, and attempting to seize the throne. After listing all the charges, the owl judge slammed the hammer onto the platform, declaring that the trial to address these crimes would now begin. Yet despite hearing his name tied to every accusation, Greed only smiled devilishly, completely unfazed by what was about to happen. The scene shifts to the inside of the tower, where Sejun is quietly picking strawberries one by one in a vast strawberry field. As he works, a system notification appears before his eyes. It identifies the crop as a lucky strawberry, a tower-grown fruit that has fully absorbed nutrients. Its taste and quality have improved due to the farmer's skill, and consuming it increases luck for 1 hour. It is a grade C crop with a 90-day expiration period. Sejun smiles faintly as he looks down at the strawberries in his hands. When he turns around, he notices white rabbits hopping around the field, diligently helping him harvest. The sight makes him smile again. Moments later, as Sejun plucks a chili pepper from the soil, another notification appears. This one identifies the crop as a calmness chili pepper, also grown inside the tower and fully enriched with nutrients. Consuming it calms the mind for 1 hour. Like the strawberries, it is a grade C crop with a 90-day expiration. Seeing this, Sejun feels satisfied, realizing he can now make spicy food as well. He moves to the other side of the field to continue harvesting chili peppers. Suddenly, he notices the baby bear holding one of the peppers and bringing it to his mouth. Sejun reacts too late. The baby bear eats it immediately. A few seconds pass before the effect kicks in. Flames burst from the baby bear's mouth as it starts screaming in agony. Sejun freezes in shock at the sight, then quickly reassures him, knowing the effect will only last a short while. True to his words, the burning sensation begins to fade after several seconds. With the situation under control, Sejun resumes his work. He gathers the harvested strawberries and places them neatly in a separate area. As he does so, he calculates the quantity and concludes that 100 of each crop should be enough. The others join in to help, and in no time, all the harvested crops are neatly arranged in front of the giant golden carrot altar. Sejun counts them and confirms that 9 different types of crops are ready. At that moment, a new notification appears. It is a job quest related to harvesting, requiring the use of the harvest skill 100,000 times. The system shows that Sejun has already used it over 11,000 times, meaning he has surpassed the 10,000 mark. He pauses briefly, wondering what to do about the final crop. Theo, standing nearby, points out that only pineapples remain. Immediately after, the white rabbit formally dedicates the harvest to the golden carrot, offering sincerity and requesting a blessing of abundance. Before the white rabbit can say anything else, the golden carrot begins to shine intensely. Another system notification appears, confirming that 100 units each of 107 crop types have been offered and that the quest has been completed. As a reward, the Festival of Abundant Harvest is activated. Sejun watches the glowing altar with satisfaction, realizing their plan has succeeded. The white rabbit confirms it as well. Another notification follows, announcing that the giant carrot altar of the red ribbon is bestowing a great blessing upon the entire area. The golden light grows so intense that even Aileen's crystal ball begins to shine. Elsewhere in the tower, a dragon woman reading quietly is startled by the sudden surge of power. The glow spreads across multiple floors, catching the attention of many. Among them, warriors of the Minotaur tribe stop in shock. Their king stares at the light in disbelief, wondering what kind of phenomenon could produce such radiance. After a brief moment, he gives an order for everyone to prepare and move toward the source, nodding that it has been a long time since their last expedition. The scene then abruptly shifts to the central court of the Merchant Passage. A verdict has just been delivered and the courtroom falls into stunned silence. Iona reacts first, unable to believe what she has heard. Grid has been acquitted. Grid, standing calmly on the opposite side, begins to smile. Just then, a member of the police force seated beside the main judge rises and declares his intention to testify. He claims that everything that happened was orchestrated by Grid himself. After hearing the accusation, the judge responds calmly, stating that there is no concrete evidence to support the claim. At that moment, the fox steps forward and produces a ring, declaring it to be undeniable proof. To reinforce his claim, he plays a recorded confession from Tarek, in which Tarek openly admits his crime and explains that the plan was to starve regions by cutting off food supplies so that, when everything collapsed, the land would inevitably fall under Lord Grid's rule. As the recording ends, all eyes turn to Grid. Standing on the opposite side, he remains composed and even acknowledges that the ring is indeed solid evidence. However, he immediately clarifies that it only proves Tarek's crime, not his own, and calmly adds that he has no idea why Tarek mentioned his name in the first place. The fox is enraged by this response and insists that Grid was the one who gave the orders. The judge then turns his attention to Tarek and asks him directly if this accusation is true. Without hesitation, Tarek admits that he acted alone. He claims that everything was planned to secure his position within the Boer Elder Council and that framing Grid was part of that scheme. Before the tension can settle, Iona slams her hands onto the table, loudly rejecting Tarek's confession and declaring that everyone knows they were all working together. In response, Grid calmly shifts the direction of the accusation. He states that, in truth, the entire situation was orchestrated by Iona herself. The sudden reversal shocks the courtroom. Iona reacts with fury, loudly denying the accusation and calling it nonsense. Grid, however, remains relaxed and even amused. He remarks that if he had recorded her saying such things, she would be the one standing on trial instead. At this point, the princess standing beside Iona observes that Grid's calm demeanor is suspicious. Iona attempts to recover, explaining that she simply did not expect matters to unravel so openly. The atmosphere grows heavier as the judge prepares to conclude the proceedings. The verdict is delivered with formal authority. There is no evidence that conclusively proves the charges against Grid. At the same time, there is also no evidence that fully denies his connection to Tarek. As a result, the charge of instigating the crime is dismissed due to insufficient evidence. However, until suspicions regarding attempted harm toward Iona and Princess Pupu are completely cleared, Grid is prohibited from making contact. As the judgment echoes through the court, Grid smiles faintly. Around him, the expressions of those present harden, their eyes burning with anger and frustration as they stare at him. As the scene shifts, we see that after the hearing was finished, Grid was walking through a dark alleyway, and someone with a dark cloak was meeting him, thanking Grid for his hard work. The pig called the cloaked creature by the name Itos and advised that the creature was actually a German shepherd, like dog. Grid wondered if he was still the deputy director because he was ready as soon as Grid offered him money. Hearing that, Itos apologized. As both of them were talking, the fox inspector was listening to everything, realizing that Grid was still using underhanded tactics to save himself from a proper hearing. We come to know that Itos was the deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau, and Grid had given him a lot of money to save himself. The fox already had a feeling that something was off, so he decided to follow Grid, and then he realized that Grid had bribed the inspection department so that he could be saved. So if you want Grid to actually rot in hell, just smash the like button to 2,000 likes and consider subscribing. Then Grid started talking about how it was a good decision to not execute Tarek immediately, because putting him on the witness stand would have worked in favor of the pig. Even Itos was happy that Grid did so, because due to it, he was saved. But now the pig wanted Itos to deal with Terk appropriately, because the guy was useless now, as the hearing was complete. Then the pig gave something to the dog, which was shining brightly with a white aura around it. We come to know that this was the wild dragon seal, which even Itos had only heard about. The dog wondered how on earth the pig managed to get such a precious item outside the tower. The pig wondered if the dog was actually curious as he held the wild dragon seal in his hand, but then warned him that if he tried to find out and became a curious cat, he would definitely be killed. The pig had so much killing intent that even the dog was scared, apologizing for his rudeness and backing away while grabbing the seal. The pig told Itos that this was his last chance to do something, but the fox inspector immediately interrupted, taking out his acute gun and telling everyone not to move at all. Both Itos and Grid were shocked, wondering what the fox inspector was doing there. Finally, we remember her name once again when it is said that her name is Zaire. Even though the dog was shocked, the pig was still standing calmly. Zaire immediately called out to Grid, calling him the landowner of the 55th floor, along with the deputy director of the Secret Surveillance Bureau, telling both of them that they were under arrest for smuggling external goods into the tower, as the wild dragon seal was one of them. Itos told Zaire to stop being foolish, but the pig was constantly laughing, wondering what such a small fox could do to him. But the fox inspector was not ready to give up, aiming her gun toward the deputy director, and telling him that she was completely disappointed that her senior was such a scaredy cat, even when he was actually a dog. Now the pig wanted Itos to do something because the fox inspector was always staining him, and Grid wanted him to be out of the equation, telling Itos to take care of her as he started showing the wild dragon symbol to him. Even though Itos was really hesitant, the pig realized that there was no helping him. Then something sudden and violent happened as the pig stabbed the dog from behind, making him scream. The wild dragon seal fell, and the fox inspector was shocked, wondering how it had happened. Now the inspector was seriously scared, calling out to Grid and asking how he could commit such violent crimes even in front of a police officer. As Itos was falling to the ground due to the injury, the pig took out a knife and told Zaire that the awakened position had just opened up, asking if the fox was interested in working along with him. But the fox inspector was not ready to do that, pointing her gun at Grid again and telling him to put down his weapon peacefully, while Grid remained unfazed, wondering if the fox was refusing his proposal. The pig was so confident that he threw away the knife, telling the fox to dare and arrest him, confident that he would be released again in a few days and that nothing would actually be done about it. The fox decided to arrest Grid immediately on charges of stabbing and murder, but what she saw next surprised her. The pig suddenly started moving and picked up the wild dragon seal from the ground. Even when the fox kept telling him not to move, the pig did not listen. The pig had a crimson aura in his eyes while he continuously intimidated the fox to try and arrest him. Meanwhile, we see that Zaire was becoming more and more scared, realizing that everything was becoming increasingly dangerous. Finally, the fox got some guts and shot toward the pig. The bullet started traveling straight toward the pig's chest, but it was as if it did not affect him at all. Grid kept staring at the bullet, and as soon as it came insanely close, somehow the pig was able to dodge it. Now the fox was shocked, wondering how it was possible because it should not have happened. It seemed as if the bullet slowed down as soon as it touched the pig. Now Grid had so much confidence that he was smiling with his ugly face, telling the fox to arrest him if she actually could, pointing the wild dragon seal toward the fox as it started shining brightly with a white aura all around it. It was a trap, and now the fox inspector was completely engulfed in a white light, continuously feeling pain and agony as a trap was forming around her. It was the same white sphere that was used to trap Yona and Theo. Now the pig was laughing maniacally as he came closer to the fox, telling her that the offer to work with him was still open. But as the fox remained persistent, the pig decided to give her some time because the offer was not a joke. As the scene shifts, we come to the 99th floor once again, where the Rabbit Harvest Festival was going on. As the Harvest Festival began, the energy of abundance was overflowing, and all the creatures, along with Sejun and Theo, were happy that they were able to witness such an energetic festival. Even Bad Bat was surprised, as he was the new member of the team. The baby bear was energetic too, feeling as if something was making him overflow with energy. Sejun received another notification window stating that the special quest was completed, and that he had successfully held the Harvest Festival. Finally, the rewards would be given. Just then, a queen bee flew towards Sejun and came near his head. The boy wondered what it was, but as he turned around, he saw the Ox King along with multiple other minotaurs approaching insanely close to his farm and calling out his name. The boy was definitely scared by the earthquake-like tremors he was sensing, wondering what it was, while looking at the giant golden carrot with the ribbon in front of them. The Ox King wondered why a giant, delicious-smelling golden grass was floating in the air. Sejun ignored the dumb question, unable to believe that the king did not even know what a carrot was, while pretending to be happy to see him. Then the cute little frog along with Theo started screaming at the Ox King, wondering how he could speak so informally to the mid-level manager of the Black Tower, who was also the Black Dragon himself. But the Ox King and the other minotaurs explained to the frog that they were the bosses of the 99th floor, which gave them the authority to talk to the boy like that. Bad Sejun tried to calm the Ox King down, while the queen bee looked a bit scared. The boy told the king that since the 99th floor was finally having its harvest festival of golden carrots, they should go with a cheerful vibe and everyone should enjoy, because the whole floor was overflowing with energy. Hearing that, the female ox realized that this was why she was feeling energetic. The entire 99th floor had multiple street vendors along the way as they celebrated. For Sejun, this was a surprise, wondering who the street vendors were. As the scene shifts, we see the Ox King, the female ox, and the other creatures, along with their head chairman, Sejun, reaching a place where the street vendors were present. One of them called out, telling them to come quickly. They were a group of cute-looking tanuki and raccoons, who told everyone that the opportunity of their lifetime had arrived because the mass gang was there on the 99th floor. Looking at these cute little creatures, even Sejun started smiling, wondering what was going on. Even the golden cat Theo was shocked, because although he was a wandering merchant, he had never seen anything like this before. One of the cute little raccoons explained that it was a long-standing tradition of the Harvest Festival. The mass gang, who were members of the Raccoon Guild, would come to the place where the festival was being held and sell many things to make the festival even more exciting. Thea went closer to one of the raccoons, wondering if they had reported to the Wandering Merchant Association before doing any business. But the raccoon had no idea what the Merchant Association was, because more importantly, it had been a while since they had actually come to the Black Tower for a visit. Sejun, on the other hand, was shocked when he looked at the item placed in front of him, knowing at a glance that it was a rice cake, and that it was even tasty. And the cute raccoon with the hat saw the opportunity, calling Sejun a good customer with really good eyes for food. The cute creature further explained that he had just picked it up, and that the rice cake was warm and chewy, making it really delicious. And since Sejun was the tower farmer of the Black Tower, the raccoon was ready to make a special offer, telling Sejun that if he bought 2 right now, he would get 1 more for free. Looking at such a tempting offer, Sejun immediately became serious and disagreed with it, shocking the raccoon. But just then, the boy was actually surging with insane energy, telling Garakun to just give him everything that he had, not caring about the money he was going to need, scattering multiple tower coins with the emblems of the Merchant Association on them, even shocking the raccoon with how rich Sejun actually was. The raccoon collected all the money, not even able to count how many tower coins Sejun had given, or whether it was the right amount for the rice cakes. It was as if the boy was completely possessed, because for him, having rice cake after so long was like heaven itself, as this was the first rice in such a long time that he had seen. Now Sejun was calmly blowing hot air off the rice cake and took a small bite, while the baby bear was drooling all over the ground after looking at the squishy little rice cake roll. Then we get to see the diary entry of Sejun, day 267 on the Black Tower, where he finally gets to taste the beautiful flavor and texture of rice, his face showing the true face of heaven. Even the baby bear was enjoying the whole thing, while Theo turned around, wondering what the chairman was doing. The other rabbits were shopping for cute little shoes and clothes. Meanwhile, Theo, the golden lucky cat, went to a female raccoon who was selling multiple toys that were cute-looking. But then I think you all guessed what was going to happen. Suddenly, Theo made a surprised face as his paws started giving him a tingling sensation once again. After a long while, Theo wondered what it was, knowing that his golden fortune was reacting. The raccoon lady was just waiting for Theo to grab something expensive. Theo came insanely closer and then slammed his paws straight onto one of the cute little toys, telling the lady that this was it, and that he was going to buy it no matter what. Even the raccoon lady was surprised, while Theo, being the good cat he was trained to be by Sejun, wondered if the price was going to be negotiated. We see that in the hands of the cute little cat was actually a key, with the same ribbon as the red ribbon rabbits, along with the same bunny ears engraved on it.